Hi, this is Jürgen Rasmussen. Welcome to the Provocative Hypnosis vlog. This one is about stage hypnosis versus hypnotic change work. Notice I'm not saying hypnotherapy. The reason I'm not saying hypnotherapy is because the work that we do with hypnosis with clients really is not therapy for the most part. Therapy presupposes a disease, an illness, some sort of pathology that you're treating. The issues that people come in with to see us, whether it's smoking or depression or anxiety or panic attacks or pain control or whatever it might be, these are not diseases. They are not diseases, so there's no reason to imply that there's any treatment going on. Neither is there any reason to imply that the client is sick and to encourage the client to take the sick role as he understands the role. So I'm saying hypnotic change work, meaning that you're helping the person to change, and you're using the ritual that we call hypnosis in cooperation with a client. So stage hypnosis versus hypnotherapy. I think it's very important to be aware of the differences between the two, the differences in terms of intent, the differences in terms of frameworks. On balance, I think the mindsets and the attitudes and the goals of stage hypnosis are detrimental to hypnosis change work. And I think a lot of change artists, a lot of coaches, and a lot of clients are shortchanging their results by adopting the mindset of stage hypnosis when they do the work. So let's look at the two and let's contrast them a little bit. First of all, stage hypnosis sells the notion of hypnosis as a special, unique state. And if you notice all the hypnotic phenomena that is done in a stage hypnosis context, it usually sells the idea that hypnosis is a form of mind control. That in this special hypnotic state, the so-called stage hypnotist can give someone suggestions that they then are helpless to kind of reject. So whether that be a name amnesia or whether that be their feet stuck to the floor or whether that might be not being able to see something as in a negative hallucination or to not be able to stop laughing, for example, or to think that they are someone else and completely believe it. Stage hypnosis shows sell the idea of mind control, that the hypnotist is in some way in control of the mind of the other person, and that what makes this possible is a special state called hypnosis. So you could say that stage hypnosis sells the idea of less choice, meaning that as a result of the hypnotic interaction, the person has less choice about how to respond and is kind of forced to have the suggested experience. Hypnotic change work is about the opposite. It's about people leaving with the perception of more choice, more appropriate choice. To not leave the office with the notion that someone else is the direct source of their emotional experience, and to have better choices, to have more choice, to have more appropriate choice, and to have the perception that they themselves are the source of the choices. So these two are in direct conflict. Now, let's look at what actually happens in stage hypnosis and how stage hypnosis actually works. Um, First of all, notice that it's not the case that the stage hypnotist shows up at someone's door and kind of jumps into their apartment and hypnotizes them against their will. People actually pay to go see a stage hypnosis show. So there's consent. They have consented to be part of the show. They've paid their tickets. They've traveled. They want to be there. So that's A. It's a consensual activity. B, the stage hypnotists are looking for the people with the most hypnotic capacity, those 5 or 10% of the population that we erroneously call somnambulists. By the way, don't use this sleep terminology like somnambulism or sleep or waking up with your clients. We know from early EEG studies that hypnosis is nothing like sleep. It has nothing to do with sleep. We know this at this particular time. So there's no point in using that type of terminology. It's a misrepresentation of what's actually going on. So, anyways, the stage hypnotists are looking for the people with the most hypnotic capacity. That capacity for suggestibility and dissociation and absorption. And he's doing a bunch of tests to kind of test for the engagement and capacity of the participants. So most people will not be selected to be on stage. The stage hypnotist could not have done the show with the vast majority of the people in the audience. That's important to know. So one of the big things that you're looking for are those highly hypnotizable people. There are all these tests and rituals kind of designed to get those up on stage. Now contrast this with hypnotic change work. With hypnotic change work, you have to recognize that people vary a lot in their hypnotic capacities. And you can't base what you do with most of your clients. You can't base that upon what you might be able to achieve with someone who's highly hypnotizable, because most people aren't. So if you're going to see clients, you're going to have ways of working with both people who are highly hypnotizable, people who are kind of in the medium range, and people who are low responders, and even have other psychological and behavioral approaches for people who don't seem to respond hypnotically at all. So this is one area where hypnotic change work is very different. You need to know how to work with people irrespective of their hypnotic capacity or perceived hypnotic capacity. And you even need to know when to do something else. Hypnosis is not the right option for everyone. Not everyone's going to respond well to hypnotic interventions. So you need to know how to work psychologically, how to work behaviorally with people who for one reason or another, won't really respond to hypnotic work. Um, there are many factors going on in the stage hypnosis show. So for example, like everyone who's ever been in sales knows, the more you can get a customer to say yes, the more you build that internal consistency. So for each test that the stage hypnosis subject passes, they're building that internal consistency. The tests get a bit more difficult. So, and that makes it so that they're more likely to comply and to respond to the next test. You have the principle of social proof, meaning that if everyone around you are acting really weirdly, it's going to be more likely that you're going to act more weirdly too. This is another factor of the stage hypnosis context. You have the kind of competitiveness, where people are, since everybody else is doing it, there's a selection process of who gets to be on stage. This also has a tendency to kind of amplify people's responsiveness. You have the authority figure on stage. You have the kind of group pressure to kind of conform and to perform. You also give people an alibi. Adults have the chance to play different roles and to enact various aspects of themselves without being held responsible for it. So I know about a guy who played a gay ballerina once during a hypnosis show, and he played that role a bit too well. Of course, afterwards he could say, no, 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 it wasn't me, it was the hypnosis. So this is a welcome break for many adults to be able to engage with roles and play out various parts of their personalities without having to be socially responsible for it. So these social psychology factors are a big part of what happens in a stage hypnosis show. The social psychology factors, which in of themselves have a tendency to enhance responsiveness a lot. The social conformity, the social psychology factors, which also sometimes will make quite a few people kind of comply and pretend to have experiences that they're not really having. I'm not saying that this is happening most of the time, but it's happening some of the time. If you look at obedience research, for example, Salomon Asch, who had this experiment where he had two different lines. This was not like a visual illusion. These were two lines where one line was clearly longer than the other, and he would ask a person which line is the longest. Now, before that person had the chance to respond, he had to see 9 other people respond to the same question. Now, these other people in the room were actors, but he didn't know that. And all of them said that the short line was longer than the long line. And if I remember correctly, um, about 70% or more than 70% of the people would then sincerely claim, after having seen the 9 actors give the wrong answer, that the short line was actually the longest line, even though they knew that it wasn't the case. So this kind of implies or suggests that at least 70% of adults are not able to resist very basic forces of social pressure, even in a scenario where there's no risk really of anything. Like, imagine this as an implication for jury service or what very often happens in meetings where people think that if there's a bunch of people in a meeting or in a jury that agree that you have the strength of diversity. But if you know a little bit about group psychology and social psychology, you know that diversity is likely an illusion. What very often happens is that the people with authority, the alphas in the group, make a decision, and then the others more or less go along. So you very often have a kind of false consensus where the group gets used in a sense to as support of in support of a decision where there really isn't that consensus, but it's pretended. So this is also a factor in the responses that actually happen in a stage hypnosis show. So you have the social psychology factors. You are looking for highly hypnotizable folks, people who have that capacity. And then you have the skills and the intent and the showmanship and the artistry of the so-called stage hypnotist. You have to understand what happens in that context based upon those variables. So if you look at stage hypnosis, you can really easily get the impression that, hey, anyone can do deep hypnosis or solid hypnotic phenomena, so to speak. You can just suggest people's experiences or people's symptoms away, easily. Um, and of course, working with clients in an actual change work setting, you don't have that social pressure or social psychology factors going on. You don't have the competitiveness, the social proof, the um, you most likely don't have a somnambulist. So there are very different factors at play. The most destructive thing that stage hypnosis sells people is the idea that someone else can be in charge of your mind. Because if you look at most clients, when they come in, they essentially say, most of them, that, hey, I have these feelings. And, when people drive like that in traffic, that pisses me off. Or when the audience looks at me and has expectations, then I get performance anxiety. Or if people criticize me, I fall apart. Or if people don't approve of me, my self-esteem goes down the drain. So essentially, my feelings are directly caused by these external events and objects and situations. This is poisonous psychology. It's not true, it's not accurate, and it's very disempowering. So if somebody goes into a hypnotist's office and the hypnotist helps the person change, the person changes his thinking and his expectations, reorganizes his own internal associations, but he leaves with the belief that it was a specific state of hypnosis and the suggestions of the powerful hypnotist that caused the change in him. Uh, this is often not a good trade-off. The person might solve a particular issue, but the hypnotic context is reinforcing exactly the poisonous victim-based psychology that most often is at root for their issues to begin with. So you can help people create the changes without the magical thinking, without kind of imposing a lot of erroneous ideas that are neither true nor useful in most cases. So good quality hypnotic change work is not about restricting someone's choices. It's not about a unique state of consciousness. It's not about one person controlling another person's mind. It's about more choice. It's about the person discovering, reorganizing their own internal associations in such a way that they have better choice, more appropriate choice, better responses in the contexts at hand. So this is this is very, very crucial. Um, a very, very crucial distinction. I would like to invite you to take a look at, a lot of times if you go to conventions or seminars, you will have people, put on shows, dramatic displays where people look to be making dramatic changes on stage. And quite often, these changes don't really hold up in the real world. Here's a tip. Here's a very practical tip if you want to become better at reality testing and better as an agent of change. When you go to a seminar, if you go to a convention, if you see demos of change work and suggestions on stage, get to know the demo subjects, get their phone number, get their email address, contact them a few weeks or a few months later, and ask them how the changes are holding up. And you will discover that a lot of what was passed off as enormous successes on stage aren't necessarily that in the real world. But most people don't know that. If you don't ask the person, or if you don't know the person well, most people will be left with the illusion that that dramatic demos equals sustainable change in the real world. Now, this is not a concern for people who have that stage hypnosis, power hypnotist mindset, but it is a concern if you're running an actual practice, if your business is helping people create long-term sustainable changes. You need to work with expectation management in a very different way. I'll give you an example. I've mentioned this in earlier vlogs, but if you do a session with a client, there are essentially four outcomes that can result. One is, total change, total resolution. The client has gotten what they came for. B, some change. Might be major, might be moderate, might be slight, but there's some sort of shift. C, no change. D, worse, meaning they've increased their symptoms. So if you play be the hypnotist, the power hypnotist, yes, it's all done in one session. Yes, we'll change this. When you open your eyes, your problem will be gone forever. You'll no longer feel any pain. If you play that ego crazed showman with your actual clients, yeah. If you have a highly hypnotizable client who's also willing to let go of their symptom, you will get some great miraculous changes. And as long as you get a total resolution or at least a solid improvement, you might be fine. But what if there's just a slight improvement? Or what if there's no change? Or what if the client actually increases their symptoms? You're dead. You have zero credibility with that client in all likelihood. And here's the perverse part. The perverse part is that the people who play the confidence game, the people who, yes, your pain is gone, it's gone forever. The people who do that stuff, they're often so congruent that they will likely never hear counter evidence, meaning that the clients will probably not even tell them that they still have pain or that they still have their symptom. And this, perversely enough, has a tendency to further encourage their confidence. And while this might be a great mentality to have on stage, it's not good. It's not credible. It's not intellectually honest in the change work arena. So we should thank the stage hypnotists, because hadn't it been for them, hypnosis may well have died out. And they've kept hypnosis alive, which is a good thing. There are plenty of things to, let stage hypnotists inspire you, with their confidence, with their showmanship, with their artistry, with their willingness to take charge and make stuff happen. Let them inspire you with their rapid and instant inductions and their boldness. A lot of the skills that they have are great skills at calibration, great skills at evoking states, great skills in using artistry and using showmanship and stuff like that. These are great skills. So let yourself be inspired by it, but don't take the mindset to heart. On balance, in my opinion, it is detrimental to actual change work if the intent is to help people create sustainable changes over time. So hope this was useful. Till next time, have a good one.